Thank you. So this Wednesday is the beginning of the Jewish holiday of Passover. Passover is the beginning of the celebration of the liberation of the Jewish people from Egypt. It is a celebration of spring, a gathering of family for Passover dinner, which many will be missing this year, a celebration of birth and rebirth, and a journey from slavery to freedom. In many ways, it is also a remembrance to take responsibility for yourself, the community, and the world. Moses told the Jewish people to find ways to make Passover personal to themselves. This mandate was reinforced later by the rabbis of the Talmud. They instructed the Jewish people to tell their story, not just the story of the exodus of the Jewish people from Egypt, but to bring forth the feelings and the experience as if you were experiencing it now. In this way, it's not just the story that has power, but it is brought into our lives in a very real way. So I am finding that for some parts of this Corona journey that we are on, these sermons are kind of preaching themselves. That's how I feel about Passover. So you see, Passover has a plague in the story. According to the Hebrew Bible, God felt so strongly about the liberation of his people from their enslavement by the Egyptians that he inflicted 10 plagues on the Egyptian people. Now, I know our world has changed, social distancing, masks, and lack of toilet paper, but imagine what would happen if all of a sudden a group of people were infested by frogs. 3 of the plagues were insect-based: lice, locusts, and flies. 4 of them were environmentally based: the water turning to blood, hail, fire, and darkness. But it wasn't until the threat of death that the Egyptian pharaoh really started paying attention. No, it was the 10th and final plague that was the threat of killing the firstborn child of each family. God told the Jews to put blood over their door as a sign, and the angel of death would pass over them, hence the name of the holiday. Exodus chapter 12 says, "The blood shall be a sign for you on the houses where you are. And when I see the blood, I will pass over you, and no plague will befall you to destroy you when I strike the land of Egypt. This day shall be for you a memorial day, and you shall keep it as a feast to the Lord throughout your generations, as a statute forever. You shall keep it as a feast." It was this final plague, the threat of death, that convinced the Pharaoh to let the Israelites go. Well, okay, he decided, but then he changed his mind, and God still helped them by parting the Red Sea and letting the Israelites pass through. And that's all still part of the Passover story too. But it was this plague that was a critical step that led to the liberation of the Jewish people 3,300 years ago. Many in the Jewish tradition consider Passover as their people's birth certificate and a declaration of independence. Or you can think about it as memorializing something that God did for those Jews all those years ago. Okay, so let's stop here. Right now, you could find several places where I could depart on a sermon on what we could learn from Passover and the coronavirus plague we have now in 2020. We could talk about how we're the chosen people and that God will save us from this plague. No, we're not going there. We're grounded in universalism, and we believe that all people are saved and that every single person has worth and dignity. We could talk about how God sent a plague to send a message to the Egyptians. Nope, I'm not going to get there either. As I said last week, I attribute this virus totally to science, and I will strongly refute anyone who says this is from God. It is a tiny virus molecule that is wreaking havoc on us. But how the threat of death can be so scary that it makes us rethink the enslavement of people and start journeying towards our collective liberation? Yes. Now that'll preach. That'll preach in a UU context. Now I need to be really honest right now, because Like you, I'm pretty worn out from all of this. I just want 1 week to be somewhat similar to my last week. I want a sense of normal, whatever that is. And I start thinking about what that is. What was my normal? My own personal normal was that I live a very privileged life, and I have dedicated my career to the work of liberal religion, our community, and the liberation of all people. But this past couple of weeks, whew, it's difficult to just remember to shower and to eat a healthy meal and get outside for a walk. The work of collective liberation feels so overwhelming. I'm seeing the news of people who've lost their jobs with no savings or safety net under them. I'm reading the emails from the homeless shelters that are struggling without groups of volunteers or food donations. I'm hearing the horrifying stories of the condition in our immigration detention centers and the first confirmed case of COVID at Eloy on Friday. And I just want to cry at the scariness of it. I am overwhelmed. I am grateful for our civic engagement team who are still valiantly meeting and giving us all some collective actions we can make at this time. They are really helping me to focus on the places that I can do something, just something, and also take a shower. But here's the thing that I keep saying and the hope that resonates under all of this for me. I believe that we will be studying the ramifications and consequences of this plague for decades. And I think the threat of death, if we push for it like the Israelites did, can lead to our collective liberation. I believe that. I need to believe it. And I do believe it. As much as I desperately want it, I really don't want to go back to normal. Normal wasn't working. If we go back to the way things were on a collective level, then we will have lost the lessons that we're learning now. I believe that after we've shown the importance of having a minimum working wage for every single person, we can't go back to saying that it's not critical. I think after we have a health scare like this, where we are willing to shut down the world in order to provide adequate health care for people, that we can't go back and say that some people don't deserve ongoing health care. I think that when we see what we can do when human beings' lives are threatened, that we can't then go back and say that we can't do something. We have to, we must. But here's the thing, and I don't say this lightly, although maybe with just a little jest. We need to be like God. Yes, like God. We need to look out and see who the Israelites are in our modern day story. We need to see who the people are who are suffering under oppressive circumstances, who are being enslaved by systems, history, economic disparity, or false borders. And like God, we need to work to free them. There are some things we can do now. You can donate to some of the organizations who desperately need it. Within the range of our congregation's giving scope, UMOM's New Days Homeless Shelter is desperately seeking help to home families during this crisis. If you want to help the Maryland school students who've relied on school for food, you can reach out to Kathy Kim. And if you want to help members of our own congregation who are struggling, then I encourage you to donate to our own ministerial discretionary fund, where we're going to be helping our own folks. But the Jewish people didn't get their liberation overnight. They wandered for 40 years and had times of great despair, and will have times when it feels rough as well. So what I ask for you to do right now is to be aware. When you are struggling, I want you to also remember those in our city who are hungry, without a home, or fearing for their lives. Not because I want you to not feel bad for yourself, but because, in the words of Lila Thompson, our liberation is bound up with theirs. We are bound together. When you read the news, you can take a moment to despair because it can be downright terrifying. And I want you to hold on to this awareness of people beyond ourselves, because I promise that when this is all done, we will want to go back to whatever we thought was normal. But we must remember that what was normal for many of us was deeply oppressive for others. May we come out of this with a new normal, a new commitment to justice, a new sense of what we are able to do to help each other. May this plague reinforce our commitment to the liberation of all of us. So might it be. Amen.